Beginning our Daf Mesech Yevamos Daf. We begin at the bottom line of Ayin Tesma Beis, where we finish off a topic that we're discussing on the previous Daf from the Mishnah, which we had. Rabbi Shloimy heard that a Saris is Chaylitz and the Cholzen Lishtay. He heard a Saris is Nachlitz, Loi Cholzen Lishtay. And he says, I do not explain which is which. And we have Machlekes in the Mishnah between Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Eliezer, which is the one that we say you're going to have Chalitza, which one the one is going to say it's not. And that's between Sris Adam and Sris Chama, between if he was born like that, which is Sris Chama, or Sris Adam, and that's why Gemara is going to continue with that the conversation. Today's Daf. Something we're discussing today's Daf, like we mentioned, a Sris Adam is someone who happened after he was born, that he became incapable of having children. And a Sris Chama was born like that. Then we later bring on Machlekes Basham Beisil regarding the age that we determine if a man is a Saris and a woman is an Islandess, as we had in the Mishnah. The Rabbi Eliezer says that what's his a third version, that in one he is like Bishame and one is like Beisil. The question regarding, do we say that they become adults retroactively from 13 for a man and 12 for a woman? Meaning, when we find out that this person is an Islandess or this person is a Saris, what happens is that we never really knew they become adult, because we all assume bar mitzvahs when you're 12 and 13. Truth is, you have to have the simony of godless. You have to bring these signs, and these individuals, they don't. So what happens? When do they become an adult? When we find out that they're a Saris retroactively, we say they were godless from 12 and 13, or do we say that no, they only become adults when they become a Saris Islandess? Let's say we find out at age 20, whatever it is, that he's a Saris. So, and we'll see in the Gemara exactly when that would be. So is it then that it becomes a gadol, or do we say retroactively? Also, that regarding Ein Islandess Nidanis Kanara, related to this idea is that an Islandess, which is, again, she's not the regular maturation of a girl, she doesn't develop this Simoni Bagras, so she's going to go straight from being a Katana to a Bageres, and she's not going to have that intermediate stage of being a tween, maybe. But the point is that she won't have that stage of becoming a Naira, because she doesn't have that. She goes straight from the Katana to the Gedera. So we begin the current Daf, first finishing up what we had from the previous Gemara on Daf Ayin Tesma Beis, the last line. We had mentioned Sris Chama, Sris Adam. So the Gemara says, Heichadam is Sris Chama. You told me that a Sris Chama is in contrast to Sris Adam, that he never had a Shasa Kaisher. Kiva's opinion was, Sris Adam, he had a Shasa Kaisher, so he could do Chalitza. Sris Chama never had a Shasa Kaisher, never had an opportunity to have a situation of having children, so by him you're not going to do Chalitza. So what's a Sris Chama? So Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef, it says, Kol, as you continue to pay him out. Yeah, that he never had a moment of virility of having a child because he was born congenital with the inability of having a child. How do you know that this child was born like this? Maybe it happened a week into his development, that then something happened with his reproductive organ. How do you know? It says the Gemara Mabaya says, "Kol matal mayim." Whoever urinates, ve'eno isekipa, where the flow of the urine doesn't go at it doesn't go at a distance when he's urinating towards the above, it doesn't become like an arch. If he doesn't urinate like an arch, that's a sign that this person is a Sris Chama, that he was born like this, that he does not have the ability to have a child. It says, what does it come from? It says, the Afi Ime, his mother baked bread in the oven, b'tiara at noontime, where she gets heated up from the heat of the oven and the heat of the afternoon, and v'shasa shichra marka, she drank either it's diluted beer or strong beer. That combination of heating up the body caused that the fetus should be sterile and not be able to have a child. Now, Rabbi Yosef, he says, this is what I heard from Ami, the Ami that he said when he was explaining what's a Sris Chama. Whoever is born already flawed from the womb, either it means to say, I didn't know from what it's from, and now I know, or the Rashi brings a different girsa, that I heard Ami that said, whoever is flawed from the mother's womb, I didn't know what it is. In other words, I didn't know what he was going on. Now I know definitively he's going on the Sris Chama, as he explained that's how a Sris Chama is brought about. Now says Gemara, you're telling me that a Sris Chama was born like that, but maybe he actually was healed in the meantime for one moment, In other words, you told me that a Sris Chama cannot do Chalitza because that he never had a Shasa Kaisha, never had an opportunity. How do you know? Maybe there was a day or a week or an hour or whatever it was that he was able to have a child. Says the Gemara, no. Even the Tchilas of Sevelaka, since we know in the beginning that he was like that he was not able to, let's say, have an arch of his urine. And then B'Sefer, we know at the end now he's also, that he's locked. So we're not concerned that maybe there was a moment somewhere in between that he was able to have a child. So on that, the Gemara has Master Rabbi from Mishnah says to B'Chayris. The Mishnah there is going on regarding the firstborn animal. There are certain things like white spots or water in the eyes. If they're permanent, they're considered a blemish. Now, what's considered a permanent white spot? If it was there for a period of 80 days. That's considered a real blemish, and that would invalidate it from being brought as a carbon. Now, on that Mishnah, in that Mishnah, he says, he says, but we inspect the animal 3 times during the 80 days. First in the beginning of the 80 days, then in the middle, and then at the end. But to check it in the beginning and the end would not be sufficient, because maybe in the meantime, in the middle somewhere, it had passed, comes out it's not really permanent. And we don't say since the beginning at the end it's flawed, for sure it didn't pass. Well, that refutes what we just said before regarding knowing that this person is Sris Chama. He says, as long as we know in the beginning, we know at the end, we presume. But why wouldn't we say the same thing by the B'Chayris? Says the Gemara, no, L'chad Aver, for one organ, for the eye, Chachin, we're concerned that maybe he healed in between, and then we have to check in the middle also. But the Kule Gufa, for the whole body, as Rashi explains, Sris Chama is an illness of the whole body. We're not concerned that maybe somewhere in the middle the body healed. Homeostasis, maybe we'll say one organ healed, but the whole body that was ill, to say that maybe in the middle, but that we're not concerned, that we can presume that he is a Sris Chama that never had a Shasa Kaisha. Now we continue with the halacha of the Mishnah. Rabbi Eliezer, he disagreed with Rabbi Kiva. He says, Loi ki, b'chul. He says, no. He says that it's actually a Sris Chama, that he's, not like Rabbi Kiva who said it's Sris Adam. It says Sris Chama is the one that Chelet v'chotz l'ishtay, and he says Nishishli Refu. It comes from a different svar, from a different logic. Rabbi Kiva was saying because of Shasa Kaisha. Rabbi Eliezer says, no, that's not the reason. The reason is if you could heal. Someone who is born with a disease could be healed, but someone that was castrated, someone that had something that was actually done through human cause, that cannot be healed, and therefore, to the contrary, Sris Chama could do the chalitza. Problem is, the Gemara has a Minu contradiction from Mishnah in Mesechta Nida. Mishnah says that if, let's say, you have a Yavam who's been Esr Shana, let's say he's 20 years old, but he's already by mitzvah, already 7 years, he never yet brought his 2 pubic hairs, which is a sign of him being an adult. Now, if the courts are requiring the Yevama to do chalitza or to do yibum, but this young man is already 20 years old and never brought his 2 sairas, so Yeviu, so the relatives of the Yevama, should bring a raya of proof, Shehu ben Esrim. What do you mean? The Yavam is already 20. V'hu asaris, and he's a saris. In other words, as Rashi explains, he developed the signs of being a saris. As the Gemara explains this in Nida, Dafim Zayin Mabes, as because Rashi says, if he didn't develop signs of being a saris, then we would say, okay, the reason why he didn't bring 2 pubic hairs yet is because of immaturity. And we presume that he's like a cotton until most of his years, until age 35, has passed. So, okay, so he hasn't brought 2 pubic hairs, and we saw in the mikveh he didn't have 2 pubic hairs. So what? So what are you trying to say? You still have a chiyuv of a zika to the yavam, he's just a cotton. He didn't become a gadol yet. But, if we could prove that he's a saris, as we're going to shortly explain what is the siman of saris, then she could just walk. Because there's a saris. There's no mitzvah yibum, there's no zika of yibum to a saris. So let our krayvim find out, make sure that, bring proof that he's a saris, and she could walk. Similarly, the other way around. Let's say she's bas eser. Let's say she's 20 years old. And she didn't bring 2 pubic hairs. Okay, then Yeviu, let the relatives bring a raya proof shehi bas eser, and that she's 20. V'hi islandess, and she's an islandess. So she doesn't need chalitza, doesn't need yibum. So Basil says that whether it's her or him, but let her relatives bring proof that then one of them is incapable of having the zika of yibum, and then she could just walk. Now Bishami says that Zeb is Zebedei Shmoyne Esrei. He disagrees with Basil. Basil was saying both of them the age is 20, to then say that they're a saras or alnus. Beis Shammai says both of them, the cutoff is at age 18, because up until 18 we don't presume that someone is an alnus or a saras because they're still too young. But once you reach that age, it was like okay, and you have the simonim, you're a saras or alnus. Beis Shammai holds 20, Beis Hillel holds 20, Beis Shammai holds 18. Rabbi Eliezer, and he's the Tana who we're bringing into the contradiction because he's the one we're discussing our Mishnah. He says somewhere in the middle. He says Hazachar, the boy, is Kediva Bisil, which is at age 20. And the Keva, the girl, we're going to presume she's already an illness. I mean that we're saying that she's not becoming an adult. Is Kediva Bishamai, which is already at age 18. Why the girl 2 years earlier than the boy? Because a girl matures quicker than a boy. And therefore, already at an earlier age, we see that, she's not becoming not developing like a regular girl, because already at age 18, we see that she hasn't brought the 2 pubic hairs. Now, but one thing is, we see according to Rabbi Eliezer, that a sris chama, we're talking about someone who is someone that's was born like this. As we see, the idea of an illness and the saris, when you're not developing the hairs, is part of how a person was born, this genetic code, that the halacha is that loy choltz and below miyabin, says the Mishnah Meseftes Nida. Wait a second. Rabbi Eliezer said in our Mishnah, this Rizcham is the one that's chaylet v'choltz and l'ishtoi. Here you see that he's saying loy choltz and below misabamis. He was discussing like Bisham Mesil, but in his opinion, you see that he holds the Rizchama does not do chalitza even. That contradicts Rabbi Eliezer in our Mishnah. So Amar Rami Bad Dikuli Amar Shmuel says Chaza by Rabbi Eliezer. You're right, Rabbi Eliezer retracted. Now, because obviously it's a contradiction, but Iboilu the following question: which one did he retract from our Mishnah or the Mishnah Meseftes Nida? Obviously they contradict each other. Shris Chama Chaylit or not Chaylit, but which one? Says Matosh must be a raya at the time from another brayso. Rabbi Eliezer, he says Shris Chama, a person that's a eunuch, someone incapable of having children from birth, is chaylit v'choltzin le'ishtay, which is as our Mishnah's version. And he says the reason is she came b'mino misrapin because those types of people get healed. In Egypt, they heal such people. So that's like the version of our Mishnah. So obviously you have to delete Rabbi Eliezer version of Meseftes Nida because you have 2 texts versus 1. So obviously he retracted from the Mishnah Meseftes Nida. Or another approach to this, what the Gemara is saying is that from the fact that in this brayso he brings a story that actually in Alexandria they're actually healing people with this, obviously he retracted from the one Mishnah Meseftes Nida. Because although our Mishnah also says sheyesh l'refuah, but that could just sound like because that's from his own logic. But in the brayso he says clearly that this is what they're actually doing, and since they're actually doing, so that would tell us that that's how he held, that because yesh l'refuah, there was a stris cham is the one that could do chalitza. That's one approach. Another approach, Rabbi Eliezer, he says, no, lo hadabei. I don't have to say it's a contradiction that he retracted from one of the 2 Mishnayos. It contradicts. Says no, but the Mishnah Meseftes Nida, that Rabbi Eliezer is saying that the male, the boy, is like the opinion of Beis Hillel. That's not going on what Beis Hillel is saying, that it's Rizchama, you don't do chalitza, and Beis Hillel is saying the age is 20, and Bisham is saying the age of 18. Rather, Rabbi Eliezer was going lo ancient. He was just coming to tell us that up until a boy is 20, we consider him like a minor, and if he didn't yet bring 2 pubic hairs. Now, after age 20, we presume that he's an adult if he didn't bring 2 pubic hairs. It's just that he's a saras.
Yeah. Got married when I was 14 old.
Right.
14 years old, 13 years old. Doing checking this and checking that. They got married just in the, early age.
How do you know they didn't check? And also we have a chazaka.
How do you know you did check?
No, I'm saying we also have a chazaka. For most things we rely on the chazaka.
Yeah.
That there is 2 bases. There's
I don't
base.
understand. So the boy is 20, the boy is 18, or whatever the case may be. Look at them checking. One thing is they got Yidden got married early in those days. They could get married.
Right, we're not saying that we're saying that they knew that he didn't bring 2 pubic hairs. Not saying that we necessarily have to. Mayor is chaysh mi'uter. Mayor doesn't let you do.
But they're saying if you don't have to do a kid, it's not the shot to get married.
No,
That's my question to you, Rob.
right. I'm saying.
I'm good about my head right now. So I'm saying, that this is my question.
You're right. We're generally not concerned that a person is not going to develop normally. It's only the mayor, the Chai Shlomi Uta, that's brought to our Shas. He's the one that says that, let's say, a katan or katana cannot do yibum chalitza because maybe they're not going to develop as a normal boy or girl.
Yeah,
But generally, we don't.
When I got married, she was 14.
Yeah.
No checking this and that. It's like a gun.
Right. Right. Yeah. So, when Rabbi Eliezer said that this halacha of age 20, 18 is not going on what Beisil Bisham was saying regarding loy cholitz v'loy miyabim, because he holds the Sris Chama is cholitz and miyabim. It's only going on the criterion of the age, of age 20 and age 18. That he's saying for boys in age 20 and a girl at age 18 regarding punishment, to say that we presume them to be as an adult, but nothing to do regarding the halacha of loy cholitz v'loy miyabim. Now, the Gemara continues.
Why should that be punishment?
What?
Why should that be punishment?
Who?
You just said not punishment if the boy is 18, 19, or whatever.
But they would consider them as an adult. Usually you become an adult at bar mitzvah, but let's say someone has not brought 2 pubic hairs. We wouldn't give him a punishment. That, of course, we're going to check because we don't want to punish someone if they're not deserving of a punishment.
Why should I have that equation inside the...
We don't punish a minor. We only punish an adult. So a person is an adult when they bring 2 pubic hairs, not when they get bar mitzvah. But if he doesn't have, it's okay. So he's going to be a child for the rest of his life. So no, we say he's a sadist. We say she's an analyst. We say that we know they're an adult already. When is that? Is that age 20 for a boy, and that's at age 18 for a girl, according to Rabbi Eliezer. Now the Gemara continues with this halacha of Tzris Chama, which Rashi and Taisa both point out. We're actually talking about a girl over here, which is like Rabbi Eliezer, who says that a girl is a quote-unquote tsaris, we call her an alnus, at age 18 like Beishamai. And as Rashi points out, although the wording we're going to say is in the masculine, is like, it sounds like we're talking about a boy, but from the ratio you also could deduce that we're talking about a nekeva, because we're saying at age 12, if we're talking about a boy, there's no, it's not, is the earliest he can become an adult is at age 13, as the Gemara says, needed of Mibam Menal. So, although the wording sounds like we're talking about a boy, Rashi and Taisa both tell us this is talking about a girl. So, even we learned as follows. Achel Chelab. If someone ate forbidden fat, did an Isser. Chelab is just your classic Talmudic Isser of doing something wrong. He ate fat. Mi ben shteim esrei v'yom echad. From age 12 and on. Because again, under age 12, and if she didn't bring 2 pubic hairs, for sure she's a minor. Because again, the time of bringing 2 pubic hairs for a girl is from 12 and on, as the Gemara says in Masechtas Nida. But we're saying, let's say from 12, ab ben shmeina esrei, until the age of 18, and v'nolda by simon isris, and like we said, we're using masculine terminology, so we're saying saras, but again, it means signs of being an alnus. So this girl has developed signs that she's like an alnus. Now, after age 18, she brought 2 pubic hairs, which Taisa says that that's only for an added chiddush, even though she brought 2 pubic hairs. But it's not really the essential element over here. We have machlekes Rav and Shmuel. Essentially, this girl is becoming a sadis, alnus. So the question is now, from when do we qualify that she was an alnus? Rav Amanasa says l'mafreya. Rav says she actually retroactively becomes a sadis, meaning, since according to Rabbi Eliezer, you already passed age 18, which again, according to Rabbi Eliezer, it's like, in that girl is like Beishamai, that it's already at age 18 that you're an alnus, and she had not yet brought 2 pubic hairs. So here also Rashi says the chiddush is like Taisa, even if she subsequently ends up bringing 2 pubic hairs, it doesn't make a difference. We don't say that, now that you brought it retroactively, it was revealed that up until now you were a minor because it's dependent on the hairs. No. We presume that you were a saris, and you're considered as a bas einshin from already at age 12 and on when you were fit to bring 2 pubic hairs. Because we say, wait a second, usually when someone doesn't bring 2 pubic hairs, okay, they're still a minor. They didn't grow up yet. 14, 15, okay, you get 2 pubic hairs at 16, that's you become an adult. No, here we say the reason why you didn't bring it at age 12 wasn't because you didn't yet become an adult, because you're an islandess. An islandess never brings. And you were saris. So based on this, when the Bryce is going to say on Amid Beis that even if you subsequently bring pubic hairs, you're going to be like a Saras L'chol Devar, according to Rav, that means retroactive. From 12 already you were an adult, and you were a Saras. Where, as Tyson discusses, like, okay, it turns out that the old Hasra suffix that we had are really Hasra Zvadai now, retroactively. Like, in other words, you were an adult. Although we didn't have pubic hairs then, we thought you were maybe a Katana, but now we know definitively that you were actually a Gedailah. You become retroactively a Saras. If you already hit 18, you never brought pubic hairs, even if at 23 you end up bringing, that's too late already, you're an idleness, you're going to get punished for everything that you did from age 12. Shmuel, he disagrees, says no. She was a minor at that time. Meaning, we don't presume her to be a Gedailah, only from age 18 and onwards, which that's when you become a Saras. And based on Shmuel's understanding, when the Bryce Lamed Beis is going to say that then you're like a Saras L'chol Devar, it means from here on. But retroactively, we say you were a minor up until this point. Which again, Rashi says the same thing would be even if you didn't say Hivilach Hazman. Still, Shmuel would consider the girl as a minor up until age 18. He's only saying it because of Rab to tell you a Chiddush that even if you subsequently do bring two pubic hairs, you're going to be a Saras L'mafreya. But this halacha, that when you finally become a Saras, when we see, hey, look, you have the signs of a Saras, you already reach age 18, you haven't brought it. Okay, now you're Saras. Is that from here on, or is that retroactive? That's Machlekes Rav and Shmuel. So Maskal Rav Yosef asks, Rav, according to Rav, that he says that you become a Gadol, meaning a Saras, which is what you are. The only reason you didn't have pubic is because you're Saras, but really you're really an adult. That's retroactively from 12 and on. So he has an interesting question. Idleness literally mayor. According to a mayor, if a girl is an idleness, which again is someone who doesn't show signs of puberty, but she's an adult, Yehelo Knas. She should have the halacha of when a man violates her, that he should have to pay 50 silver coins. Meaning, what's the question? The Brisa says in Ksubit Avalam Hela Beis that an idleness doesn't have Knas and not Peter. If a man rapes her or seduces her, the Mishnah says in Elenairis that he doesn't have to pay the penalty. And the Gemara there explains, that's like Remeir. Remeir says a Katana doesn't have a Knas, which is Machlekes Tanoim. Remeir holds a minor does not have a Knas. And an idleness, since she doesn't have pubic hairs, she's a Katana in those days where it was fit for her to have Nairis, which is between 12 and 12 and a half. And we don't say, ooh, what do you mean? Since already she's past 18 and she never ended up bringing in the pubic hairs, so then retroactively turns out that she was a Gedol already at age 12 to make her rapist violated, obligated in the Knas. According to the Meir, why are you telling me an idleness does not have a Knas according to Rav? But according to Rav, retroactively, she was an adult at age 12 at Bas Mitzvah. Meaning we presume, oh, she's a minor. She's an idleness. Idleness doesn't have Simoni godless, so she's a Katana. But no, according to Rav, it's retroactive. And therefore she was a Gedailah. So at age 12, when she became Bas Mitzvah, she was a Nara, and therefore you should be chayiv for the Knas. Why did you say idleness doesn't have a Knas according to Rav? So my Abai has an interesting answer. He says, no. Mikatnusa yotaso lebeger. From her childhood, she goes straight to being a big woman. Meaning, you're right. Like Rav says, retroactively from Bas Mitzvah, she becomes an adult. But in general development, a girl goes through from being a Katana to a Nara to a Begeres. You have the child development. You become a tween, a teen, a teenager, you go become a young adult, you go through stages. Now, the reason why Contra Maid is not going to be a Knas is because this girl doesn't have the stage of Nairis. Because Nairis is puberty. Puberty is when you're developing, when you're blossoming, you're going through different stages. This girl who doesn't have Simonim, meaning doesn't have the pubic hairs, we consider as long as she's a minor, and during the days which Nairis would be, she's already a Begeres. Now, the thing is, according to Remeir, both of them don't have a Knas. Remeir holds you have to be a Nara to get the Knas. If you're a Begeres or a Katana, neither one of them get. So the reason why he holds the Alis Elam Knas is not only so much because she's a Katana, it's also because she's actually Begeres. Actually an adult, Begeres doesn't get. The Rabbanon, they hold an islandess in the days of our childhood would have a knas. Because Rabbanan disagree and they say Ketana has a knas, which the days of childhood is up until 12. But according to a mayor, the Mishnah El Nech is saying Elnas don't have knas because if you're a minor or an adult, you don't have. You only get it by nairs. But an Elnas doesn't have nairs because she doesn't have puberty, she doesn't develop. She goes straight from being a child to being an adult. That's why there's no knas. So Malay Rav Yisrael said to Abai, wow, you're saying good. Kol Kehanim Milim Al Yasa, all such beautiful teachings, this Amru Mishmoy should be said in my name. Because the title in the Bryce, like you said, in Asachas Nidin Keben Serim Meir. First, one halacha, a Asachas does not get qualified like a Ben Serim Meir. Why? Lefisha in Ben Serim Meir and Nidin, the rebellious and wayward son only gets qualified only when it develops the beard by the genital area. And Asachas doesn't have that. So he's not going to have the halacha Ben Serim Meir. And the second halacha is what he was supporting him. An islandess does not get qualified like the betrothed nara, which has a similar halacha to that of the halacha of oinus and mafata, which is when she's engaged. If she engages in snus, she gets a special punishment, which is by nara, has to be specifically a nara. By islandess doesn't apply. She make katnusa yasla beggar, because an islandess goes straight from being a minor to being an adult. So she won't have the halacha of nara marasa. That's like Abai had said, that there's no nairis, there's no puberty for that of an islandess. Now, a later discussion, Amr Abavo, he says, Simone, the signs of Saris, which is a man, the Alnus, and that of the woman, Uben Shmaina, an 8-month pregnancy, which in Talmudic times was considered a non-viable child. Ein Oisen Ben Maisa. You can't act on it to presume that they're adults and or they're a Saris, Achi Ben Esu, until they're already 20 years old. And they have not yet brought puberty, meaning from age 12 till 20 we wait. If they end up bringing somewhere during their teenage years, that means to say they were minors up until now. If they don't bring, then we'll end up knowing retroactively that they were gedolim, like we said before from this halacha of Rav. An 8-month-old, what does that refer to? It means he was born from an 8-month pregnancy, which you cannot do an action to presume this child is a viable child because of signs. In other words, even though, as we're going to see on the base, that he developed signs of full development from the fetus, where his hairs and his fingernails are developed when he's born, even so, we don't say definitively that he's a viable child until he has reached the age of 20. That's what we're saying. For these three halachas, the age 20 is the cutoff mark, the benchmark, where then we say, oh, okay, this person is definitive. What? Either definitively a saris, or an illness, or a viable child as from an 8-month pregnancy. Because up until then, with mevakalt, we don't really know. Maybe not a saris. Maybe he's going to develop maturity at age 17, and then he won't be a saris illness. And so too, maybe this is not really viable 8-month pregnant child. Maybe it's just surviving up until this point. The problem is, says the Gemara, Ben Shmoin Mikachai. Is that really so that from an 8-month pregnancy, the child could survive, that you're saying up until he gets to age 20? But by the time on the Bryce, it's so non-viable that Ben Shmoin Nanika Evan. The Bryce says that if a child is born from an 8-month pregnancy, it's like he's like a rock. Meaning, Basal Tali, you're not allowed to move him on Shabbos. That's how muktzah he is, because it's not a bar kayama. But the mother could bend over. You're not allowed to touch the child, but the mother could bend over and nurse this baby as continued to the days, and that's because of danger. Rashi over here says danger to both the mother and the child, where Rashi elsewhere, as the Bach points out, only says for the mother, but the mother's milk will be too much of an increase, and it could cause danger and cause death. So we allow her to nurse the baby because of danger to her, but the child is muktzah. So how can you tell me he's going till 20 if we know he's going to die? He's so muktzah. If the child might live, we wouldn't say he's muktzah. So it says, it depends. The Brisa and Rabbi Bo are talking about different cases. Here we're talking about Kisha Gomru Simana. Rabbi Bo is talking about where he was born, developed signs that he is a viable child. As the time like Linda Brisa. Izel ben Shemaina, what the 8-month child, meaning that's non-viable, that's kol shaloi kol chadashim. That's if, let's say, he didn't finish the 9 months where he was in only for 8 months, then we say, okay, this child's non-viable. Rabbi Yomi, he says, Simonim Mechichan alav. He says, no, we have indicating signs to show that there's a ben shmeina. Where side of it's upon the shlegamru. If the baby's born with his hair and his fingernails undeveloped, well, that's a sign that he's a ben shmeina, and that's the child that's not going to be viable. So it says the Gemara, time of legamru. The reason is because the hair and the fingernails were not developed. But if they were completed, I mean, we say, the baby's born 8-month pregnancy. No, hi bar zayinu. We say, really, the child is in Talmudic time. There was either a 7-month pregnancy or the 9-month pregnancy to be considered viable. Should we really say this child was already completed after 7 months, which is a healthy child? But it's just that he was a lazy one. He held back and he just didn't come out of the birth canal for another month, and therefore he's going to survive.
He was comfortable.
Yes, right. He's comfortable. He's learning Torah, concentrated. So Rabbi Vo is letting us know that even according to Rebbe, we don't presume that this child is a bar kayama, even if he has his hair and his fingernails completed, until he's age 20. That was Rabbi Vo's halacha going in that of Rebbe. But it's not a contradiction because the brisa that says he's muktzah is with shalagam esamanov. Rabbi Vo is talking about shagam esamanov, and even when shagam esamanov, again, you have to wait till age 20 to definitively know that he's a bar kayama. But that's the Gemara. But this said Rabbi Tesva did uvda a story. But there was a woman that her husband went overseas. And there was a period of 12 months that the husband didn't come back yet. And at the end of the year, the woman gave birth. The Achshere, and Rabbi validated the child, because he held that the child delayed after he was already formed 3 months. In other words, we don't say, which would seem obvious, that after the husband left, she obviously became pregnant from someone else because it was 12 months since he left. No, he said the child is valid because it was a 9-month pregnancy, but the child was comfortable for 3 months and didn't come out. Says the Gemara, come on, who's that like? Is that like Rebbe in that Bryce we just brought, who says, yeah, the child will just wait, and even though he's finished, he's not going to come out? Which the problem with that is, that means he's being lenient like a Das Yachid, like an independent Tana, not like the Rabbanan, not like the Rabbin. Says it's not a problem. Yes, it's like Rebbe, but keeping the Ikar Rabban Shimon Gamliel, the Amma Mishtai, that he also says that the fetus will wait. So it's like it's considered like he's doing like the Rabbin, not like a Das Yachid. It's not like within the Brisa, there's another Tana that says like this. Shimon Gamliel he says, Kol Shashal Lama Yem Ba'adam. If a child survived for 30 days by a person, ain't a nafel. The child's not considered as a nafel, which is that of a miscarriage. And even if you didn't finish the months of pregnancy, because we say, even though it was, let's say, born 8 months, we say really it was finished at the 7th month, and it waited up until the 8th month. The reason why we're picking ba'adam is because by an animal, the Mishnah teaches over there, that's 8 days. Or if it waited, it wouldn't be nafel. By a person, it has to be a period of 30 days. But one thing is, we see Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg is telling us that even if it was an 8-month child, if it lasts 30 days, it's not going to be a nafel. Why? Because then we're going to say that it must have been not an 8-month, because 8 months won't survive. So why, if it survives 30 days, do we say it's not a nafel? Because then we say that it must have been the 7-month one. So you see, Rabbi Shloimy also holds to this svarim. Therefore, yes, he would rule like Rebbe and Rabbi Shloimy as a rabbin that will hold that even for 12 months, maybe the baby just waited 3 months till he decided to come out. Now, talking about the Brisa, now finally telling us what are the simanim. What is it that we consider congenital, that this person is a saras from birth? Says the Brisa, Kol shu ben esrim v'lo hebish tei saras. If he's already 20 years old, he has not brought 2 pubic hairs, and even if he end up bringing afterwards, it's already too late. Then we consider like a saras for all halachas, which again, if you remember, we referenced this on Aman Aleph, Machlekes Rav and Shmuel. This, the Brisa says that is that retroactive, or is that from here and on? According to Shmuel, that's from here and on. According to Rav, this halacha is retroactive. That was what we referenced. Now, and these are the signs of being a saras. First of all, he doesn't have a beard, and the sari lokui. His hair is very soft. Ubasori machlik, and his skin is smooth like the skin of a woman, which generally by a man he's hairy. This man, his skin is smooth. Not here. He says, if his urine doesn't bubble, some say, whoever urinates, when he urinates, it doesn't make an arch at a spray at a distance, rather it just drops down, that would be signs of being a saras. Some say that if his semen doesn't get knotty, rather it's clear like water. Some say that his urine doesn't ferment, meaning when you leave it in the bowl, urine generally is very acidic, it's going to ferment. By this person, it's not going to ferment. Others say it's if he takes a bath in the winter, and his flesh doesn't make steam, which is heat like smoke, which generally a regular man has that body heat, but this fragile, this saras who doesn't have the testosterone of the regular man is not going to create that heat. He says that if his voice is flawed, and you can't tell the difference of his masculine voice from that of a woman, it's a little bit more feminine. Again, he has less testosterone, maybe more estrogen. And what's considered an islandess is if she's already 20, she didn't bring 2 pubic hairs, and we said even if she brings afterwards, it's too late. We're going to presume it to be an islandess for all our love. And then what's the signs of being an islandess? So first of all, she does, like we said, she doesn't develop like a regular girl. So she doesn't have breasts. It's also that intimacy is harsh for her. She doesn't lubricate. She doesn't have all the signs of what a normal woman would have. He says, she doesn't have the lower abdomen like a woman. A woman has like a spoon, like a small protrusion above the genital area, as the Gemara says in Daf Yomi. She doesn't have that anatomic formulation like that of a woman. He says, "Is kol shekola ava." If her voice is deep, and you can't tell the difference between a woman and a man from her voice, that's a sign of being an islandess. Now, Idma, we had the following machlokes. So we brought Simoni Saris and we brought Simoni Islandess. So Simoni Saris, Rav Huna says, Ashiyu Kulam. This time saying these are signs of being a Saris is only if you have all of them. All the signs we mentioned, then that makes you into Saris. Richtner says, no, it's not all. It's even any one of them that would make you a Saris. So the Gemara qualifies and says, if we brought 2 hairs in his beard, which Vilna Gaon takes out the Girsa beard, as we'll explain in a moment. But then Kuli Amalei Pligi, no one's going to disagree. That's you, Kula. If you have 2 hairs in your beard, then it's already a sign of maturity. So you would only be a Saris if you have all the signs of Saris. Now, Taisus points out that, wait a second, if you have 2 hairs in your beard, so what are you saying at Shehei B'Kulan? But one of the Simanim is that you don't have a beard, and he has a beard. So the Re says that no, having 2 hairs in your beard is not considered yesh le'zaken, only if you have a full beard. In contrast, that's where the Vilna Gaon takes out the Girsa, because he disagrees with that premise. But if you have 2 hairs in your beard, okay, then you're only going to be considered Saras if you have all the signs. Keep leaky, their whole dispute is b'shalai when you don't have 2 hairs in your beard, then is it enough with 1 sign, or you need all the signs to become a Saras?
Why wouldn't Shippa Zera and menstruation be the safest way of knowing what they are?
Why would it mean
you go through all these secondary features?
Meaning, if you have just that, let's say that it's not doesn't coagulate or whatever, doesn't have the signs of regular semen. That's a good question. Why wouldn't that be enough? Because maybe it's only a temporary problem. A Saras, we're qualifying almost genetically that this is a person that's not going to have an ability. It could be a local problem. But if you have all these signs, that tells us it's global. So that's why it won't necessarily be a sign of being a Saras. But then the Gemara says, wait, he says, he says, you know that Rav Nachman, give a cook of him. Look at Rav Nachman, when he goes to the bathhouse, tell me if his flesh makes steam when he's taking a bath, then then I'll give him my daughter. Now, obviously, that that means to say he won't have all the simani sagas because you're missing this one. So obviously then he's presuming that he wouldn't be a saras. Wait, come on. So then who was Rabbi Ravu going like? Kravuna? Which Ravuna says that you have to have all the simanim? Because he's saying, Guy Mikvah, see if he's Besagam al, well that will only tell us one of them. So, okay, maybe he won't have that one. But why are you going to give your daughter? Maybe he has one of the other ones. Obviously, he'll Ravuna that you have to have all of them. Says no, because of Nachman Sichi Dikno. Pegs of the beard, Havile, he had. In other words, in many places he had hairs on his beard. So then we said, when you have 2 hairs in your beard, we said that you have to have all the simanim then. So then if he's missing one of them, in the bathhouse, where his flesh is steaming, well then that's going to be enough. But maybe in general, maybe he didn't hold a Gabuna, maybe he held like the other opinion that Rabbi Yechanan, that even one would be enough to make you into a Sabbath. Now he said in the Mishnah, Hasaris, Leicholitz v'lebeyabim, Chen Alas v'chulu, said either one of them cannot do Chalitza or Yibum. Now the Gemara just wants to point out that who the Mishnah is like. Katani, we're learning in the Mishnah, Sagas doing the Almas. We're comparing the Sagas to the Almas. Now, Ma Islands of Deshman, just like we know an Islands is naturally, a woman is not through a human cause. She doesn't have an external organ like a man that could have been injured. Like a woman's alness is natural. So do the sagas of the Mishnah is naturally. So therefore, the stomach Rabbi Kiva. So our anonymous Mishnah like Rabbi Kiva, the one that he said, they add them in. That yes, if it was a sagas by human intervention, that's where you require chalitza. But b'dei shemayim, if it was just chama, then you wouldn't have chalitza. That's like the halacha of the Mishnah. Mishnah also said a sagas shacholz liyivimte. If the sagas did chalitza to the yavama, so like pasla b'chuli is not invalidated because, like we said, his chalitza is invalid. It's like he didn't do anything. But to the contrary, if bala, then if he did be with her, then pasla because again, halacha is that time in the bala, says the Gemara, that if he does be with her, that makes her into a zaina because she had bia with her husband's brother, not in the makom of mitzvah because he's a sagas, and therefore the punishment of karas of ish actually makom mitzvah. Well, that will invalidate her from kahuna. But it sounds like called achar, but someone else, not the brother-in-law, not the purported yavam, even when there's other brothers, that would not make her pasal for kahuna. As the Gemara continues up with Pe'al and Aleph, let's say that refutes Rav Amnuna. Because the Amma, he says, Shemeres Yom Shazinsa, a woman waiting for Yibam that's mizan with someone else. Psula the Yevamos, she becomes invalid to her Yevamos. Like a married woman that was mizan, that's forbidden to her husband. Now, since she's a Zaina, that's why she's forbidden to her husband, meaning to the other Yevamos, so then she should be forbidden to Kahuna. Why are you telling me if Ba'alah, if the Sagas does Biyah, the Yavam, that's a Sagas who does no halacha of him, if he does Biyah to her, that makes her Psul Tikuna, what does that have to do with him? Any person that would make her, according to Rav Nuna, a Zaina and Pasal Makuna. So you might lie, no. You're right. Even if another man, not only him, any man, had Biyah with her as a Shemer Shah, that would make her Pasal Makuna. But I didn't it's only because the first half of the halacha was talking about the Sagas himself, that his chalitza does not invalidate. So Tana Mistake of the day says, when talking about Biyah, we also spoke about him that would make it possible, but again, it's not a din in him, it would be any man according to Rav Nun. The last halacha we said in the Mishnah, so that the islanders, if the brothers do chalitza, again, that would not invalidate her because an islanders is not in the parsha of Yom chalitza, so it wouldn't make her a chalutza. And if they do Biyah to her, that would make her puzzle. Says the Gemara, Tami de Bulua. Sounds like the reason is because the brothers, if they had Biyah with her, that would make her puzzle. But if they didn't do Biyah with her, then she wouldn't be possible to kuna. So the Gemara, come on, who's that like? It's the like of Yehuda. Because the Rabbi Yehuda, Ha'amar, he says, as we quoted this on Daf Samach and Aleph, he holds every island is Dainahi. As the Gemara says over there, we learn that from a pasuk of his nu v'lo. Generally, immorality is not for having children, for proliferating. But from that pasuk, he also learns out that an islandess who can never proliferate is essentially like every time you're doing Biyah is a Maises Nus, because it's not to have children. So Rabbi Yehuda held every islandess is Zaina, and therefore then the islandess would always be Asur. From the fact that we're saying only if the brothers did Biyah to the islandess, that would make her possible Kahuna, obviously it's not like Rabbi Yehuda holds every islandess possible Kahuna as is Zaina. Thank you to any time.